This lab is revised from SQL injection attack lab 2.0 provided by SEED Labs 2.0. And we are asked to complete task 1, task 2 for this part 1, and the other tasks we are going to complete them in lab 12, the last lab. Open the lab manual. If you have any problems with your Docker container or image, please check this Docker manual. The lab setup is used to set up all the containers. The lab 11 I already have it there. Okay, there is a folder. We need to remove it with sudo. We have two images, one for the website, other one for the database. During the lecture, I demonstrate an example and it didn't work. The reason is I didn't realize the database is now in another container. I used the example from SEED 1.0, so that's why it didn't work. Now let's go into the lab setup folder. You see the two folders of the image. DC build to build the image. For the password of the database, and go inside this image, check its doc file. You see the password for my SQL root is DES, and user name with SEED is password is also DES, and the database is SQL lab users. The images are built. Now we can bring them up. PC up. Two containers are running. Open a new tab. So we can use Docker PS to find the two containers. One for the database, the other for the website. Now let's check the tasks we are going to complete today. Today we are going to complete select statements update. We will do it in our next lab. SQL injection prepared statements as a countermeasure against the SQL injection. The lab setup. This is the website. We already set up the mapping, in our etc hosts in our previous labs. You may double check it here. etc hosts. You see this name is already set up, even though it's in CS or F lab. in the database lab, here we didn't put the injection lab, right? The SQL injection lab, but the name is not right. See the lab SQLinjection.com. So this is not updated, so we need this this name, and this name is set up in this CS or FLab 2.0. Certainly you can make it more readable. Add an atom and put it here. Okay, we can open this SQL server to have a look. Open in your tab. This is a simple web application. You can find the source code here. In the lab setup, in the second image, here you see the code here. The auth code, index, log off, and so on. This website is actually this part. As it says here, you may need sudo and followed by an editor, for example gedit, to modify this etc host file to add this line. We already have it in one of our previous lab. The container setup and commands. We have done this one so many times, so I assume everyone you're very familiar with this container setup and commands. The MySQL database, if you don't need consistency, you may remove this folder. Here, this folder is saved in the lab setup. In the container is under this folder. You check the lab setup, right? The MySQL_data. If you don't need consistency, you can run this one to remove it after you port off your container. The application, here you can see we have some pre-populated users, name, employee ID, password, salary, birthday, and so on. So you can access from this web page. For example, the admin password is seed admin. You will see all the users in the database. The administrator can see all the users. If you just log in as a user, normal user, for example Alice, only the first letter is uppercase. See the Alice. You only see herself information. This is for a normal user. This simple website used to demonstrate SQL injection attack and the countermeasures. Task 1. Get familiar with the SQL statements as we practiced during the lecture. Here you need to practice by yourself. On this database, this database SQL lab users, it contains a table called credential. So, a database, a single table. We can log into the interface, MySQL interface. Here we wanted to know the database is in one of the container. We use doc.ps to find the containers. We have 2 of them. Open a new tab. Now we use doc share to go inside the database. The database contains. Now we can follow the commands in the lab menu. MySQL-your user is root-p password is DES. Now for those databases we can use share databases, right? We are required to access this one. Use this SQL lab users and each statement with a semicolon. Now we can use show tables. There's only one table credential inside this database. We can use describe this credential to see the schema. Right? You see the schema here. ID, name, EID, salary, and so on. You can select all the records from this database. I made a typo, there is no S. Okay, here are all the records, and you can see the password is a hash code. Actually, it's a SHA-1 hash code we can find in the source code of the web application. For example, this one, and copy it. Open a new tab. Here, that one is the Alice password hash code, right? If we use SHA-1 sum to calculate echo without a new line, Alice, her password is a seed Alice, right? Pipeline into this SHA-1 sum to calculate SHA-1 hash code or checksum. You see this one, I can paste the one I just copied, paste here. You see they are identical, right? So this task one is an easy task. Here, let's just several subtasks: log in and find the database and use it, find the tables and share all the records and so on. Now for task 2, SQL injection attack on the select statement. We know the select statement is used to select or query records. That is a login web page, as we just demonstrated. For the source code, you can check this unsafe home.php in the lab setup. Here, I already opened here. The unsafe home. Here it says yes, it's unsafe home. You can check how it connects to the database with PHP source code. Start a session, get the username, get the password, and calculate the SHA-1 hash code of the password. the password is saved in the database. When the user log in, it will check whether this information are in the database. Once succeeded, we use getDB function to create a SQL connection. Here you see the host is this 10.9.0.6 is the IP address of the database container. During the lecture, I didn't change this one. That's why the demonstration during the lecture didn't work, because I didn't realize this. I use an example from C 1.0. All the code are identical. You can see use this function to create a connection. The second one is this one, even though it's failed, but as an object is still allocated. So we cannot use whether it's empty to judge whether connection is successful or not. Actually, we need this one, connection error. If there are connection error, the connection failed. Otherwise, it's successful. Here we query the SQL statement. This SQL statement is constructed from the user input, right? There are two inputs: the input username and a hash password. Where the name equals this input username and password equals this hash password. We know this hash password is calculated from here. From line 44. The input password is a plain text password. But the database uses hash code. That's why here in these SQL statements, we use the hash code. If the record, we will log in, otherwise it will show some errors. Here we log in with a wrong password. The account information you provide does not exist. Actually, the account exists, the password is not right. Okay, if it's right, we will get the result, the profile information of that user and show up as we just did for Alice's account. Convert the array type to JSON format and read out. For other information, you may read by yourself. You need some knowledge about JavaScript, HTML, PHP. Here is used to select the profile information. If the user is admin, then you can find information on all users. Okay, if you are interested in the source code, read by yourself. Now we continue our attack. There are three subtasks: SQL injection attack from the web page. Here, for example, if we don't know the password of the administrator we want to log in. How could we do that? We want to learn the techniques during the lecture. Here, check the login SQL statements. We use a statement like this. Scroll down. Come here. How do we construct statements without input the password? We can comment out this part, right? And we know the single quote are added by the source code. So we need to add a pound key here to comment out this password. Now you may wonder, for other websites, how could we attack? We don't know their source code. Maybe their password is in front of this name. Then if we add a comment here, it will not work. So here is just a demonstration. For the real world situation are more complicated. Okay, to add a comment, admin, we don't need any password. First, we need to add a single quote to pair with the single quote provided by source code. Then use a comment. You may use the pound key or double dash, right? And try to log in. I get an error. I cannot log in. It says I have a SQL syntax error. So if you put this one in the source code inside here with a single quote here, then you dash dash. What we added is like this, but maybe it's better to show the constructed SQL statements in this web page. It will give us more hints in the lab, right? So you may add an echo to echo out these SQL statements. But we need to modify it inside the container. Certainly you can modify it outside the container, then copy this one to the container. So we can go inside to find that. The website container is this one. So type the first character because the first character of these two containers, they are different. So a single character is sufficient. Now for the website, inside the SQL injection, you see all the source code here. Right? We want to modify this unsafe home.php. So you may modify it outside or inside. It's up to you. I like to modify the outside. Here we can echo this SQL statement. Let's save it. Then we need to copy this unsafe home to our container. We want to know the container location is here. Can cd to that location. This exclamation mark and star means the parameter or the previous command is this one. It's a shortcut. Certainly you can type this whole path. Right now we are inside here. What we want is copy this location. Open a new tab. CD to that image. www. We want to copy this unsafe home.php. Docker copy to the location I just copied, paste here. Pay attention, the last character. Okay, it's copied there. You can check it, double check it here. Use 90 or any other, for example, less. Let's command not found. And use a cat. Scroll up to see the sentence we just added. Here it is. Now if we try to log in as an admin like this, we see the statement here. Now you see why it does not work. The statement is which means this comment didn't comment out the whole stuff. You will use the second style of comment. Now you see this time it worked, right? The statements you can see on the server side what the statements look like. Here, this one comment out the password condition, and we log in as the administrator without providing the password. Now task 2.2 SQL injection attack from the command line. For example, if we want to find address information without password, how could we do that? First, let's get her information with her password. Suppose we know her password. Open a new tab, paste here. If this password is wrong, what will we get? Failed to convert 0 to ACE string contains disallowed character. So we need to encode this one to URL. For example, single quote in that field, use this one. Empty space, you use this one. But I think the problem is this single quote from the PDF is not recognized. So I need to type it to see the difference. Right? They're different. This single quote and this single quote. That's why you always suggest don't copy from PDF file. This is a GET request. And the password. At the end, you see These statements is returned by that sentence I added for other part is returned by that web page similar to this one if we are logging as Alice. We can log out, logging in as Alice. This is what we get, and it shows up in the command line. It looks like this. Here the account information you provide does not exist. Actually it does exist, it's only because the password is not right. This is the wrong password generated. So if we log in with the right password, see the Alice, and you see we get her information. You see this table, Alice profile, and show her salary, email, and so on. So this is the right hash code for the right password. Now we want to attack it without password. If you do it like this, you supply a single quote, space, pound key. You supply it like this. Do you think it will work or not? You can have a try, right? You press enter, and you see it's not work. It says the account information you provide does not exist. The reason is the password is not right. It's this actually is this part. It's not recognized. How do I know that? Actually, again, in the source code, you can echo what you get. This is not required. For example, what you get, you can echo this input username and echo this input password to see what you get. The reason is we need to encode this one with URL encoding or personal encoding. You can only copy this port, these 3 characters, a single quote, empty space, and a pound key, to encode with a personal encoding. Here, personal encoding. You can encode it manually or use online encoder, URL encoder. In this encoding, you can see the single quote, what it is. Scroll down. Single quote is %27. Space, not show up here, is %20, and that pound key is %23. So you can do it manually or put your code here. Check the encoder. Right? We want to encoder this single quote, empty space, and pound key. Click in encoder. %27, %20, %23 is what we just discussed. And copy this one. Go back here. Paste here, like this. Now we press enter. You see we succeeded, right? You see the table. This is task 2.2. Now, task 2.3. We append a new SQL statements. We know several SQL statements can be separated with a semicolon. For example, you can try in the database. Here's the database here. For example, I want to try select. You can select any number. You just show a number. Here we just want to demonstrate we can concatenate several SQL statements with a semicolon, separate them. Select 2. Press enter. You will see two results. First one is the result of select 1. The second result is select 2. Separate with a semicolon. Task 3 asks us to append new SQL statements. For example, update statements or delete statements. Because there is a countermeasure preventing you from running 2 or more SQL statements in this attack. So please use a seed book or resources from the internet to figure out what this countermeasure is and describe your discovery in the lab report. So we first try in the web page, second we try in the command line to have a look. First let's try on the web page. Here we log out Alice. How do we write the statements? Again, we can comment out the password, right? Yeah, no matter what password it is. How do we do that? With the technique we just practiced this way. Before the comment, we use a semicolon. Then we can practice another to add another statement. For example, the update statements or delete statements. But in order to use the update statements, delete statements, you need to know the table schema. For example, the table name and those field name. Otherwise, we have no way to construct the SQL statement. Here, suppose we don't know the schema, so you can use just select 1, something like this, to see whether you see some output. Then you can log in to have a look. It says you have an error in your SQL statements. Check the manual that corresponds to your MySQL Server version or the right syntax to use near. Do you see it? It says this select 1 semicolon. This one does not work. Actually, we know this work in the MySQL command interface. You can copy this one to see actually it worked. Here, inside this SQL command line interface, MySQL in the database container, you paste here. We have a select 1 semicolon over there. We know because this is a comment out, this semicolon will not work. We need to press enter. Okay, I have a comment here. This comment commented out and worked. Here you see the first statement. Select Alice, right? Alice is selected. The second statement select 1, which means we don't have syntax error. But why we have syntax error here? All statements is verified. Here, it contains no syntax error. If you use a curl command, then you will get a similar result. Now for curl command, how do we concatenate several SQL statements together? Here, this one we have one like this, right? We know this is a single quote, this empty space, this is the pound key. Before we encode this part, we may write like this. Before that pound key, we add semicolon, select 1, semicolon. Now, again, we need to encode this part. With a percent encoding. Paste here. Encode. See, I get a %3b for that semicolon. You can check this Wikipedia webpage percent encoding 3b semicolon here. So you can encode manually or with this one. Copy it. Go back here, we paste here. Did I miss a pound key? Pound key is %23. Right? It's right, I didn't miss that pound key. Now we press enter. You see it says SQL syntax error, check its manual. What is the syntax error is here. It still says here. So we got identical result as we try on the web page. So the reason we need to check the source code. How the query is executed. Here we scroll down to find connect to the database. Get a connection. Then we use this one, com query SQL. So can we execute multiple SQL statements with this method, the query? Actually, the reason is it cannot execute more than one SQL statements. You may find more details from here on our course homepage, webpage, companion webpage. Check this one. MySQL query and MySQL mult query. There is a method mult query. So this one you can execute multiple SQL statements. Mult query. Perform one or more queries on the database. Now for this query, perform a query on the database. So that's the reason. So if you want to execute multiple queries to make the attack work, you need to modify the code to change this query to mult query. You change it to mult query. Then it will work. Ctrl S, save it. It's called a mult query. Again, we need to copy this source code and save home.php into the container here. We already have it here. Just bring up the command and do it again. Now we can try the attack. Try this attack. Let's log in. Now you check this, it didn't say error, right? But we don't see any result. So what's the problem? You check this this one. We have the result, but it converts the select return result into an array type. For the second one, we just select one, and that select one we don't have these fields. So the code, there is a problem happening here. That's why we didn't see the output, even though this succeeded. Because it didn't say error. Now, if there is error, we will see the error as we saw it before. We will see this one, and we didn't see this one, which means it succeeded. It just didn't show up. Okay, we complete all the tasks in Lab 11. In our last lab, we will do task 3 and task 4.